Hello everyone, Burb here. Today I'll be talking about end closers in the Virgo Cup. Much like the last Champions meeting, due to the overlap between late surgers and end closers, I will be focusing more on the differences between the two and the changes that you have to make to run an end closer rather than a late surger. I will be going and mentioning everything, I just won't be going to the level of detail for a lot of the stuff that you saw in the late surger guide. If you have questions on the particulars of the more general skills, either look at the CM overview or the late surger guide, or if you wish, you can go and put a question in the comments or in the ask for help on the Discord, and me or someone else for sure will be able to get to you. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about end closers. Are end closers good? They are. End closers have a particular reason that you want to run. We will get into that a little bit later, but there are implications for your team comp for running an end closer. But at the end of the day, their MO is pretty much the same as it's always been. They have the fastest late race speed coefficient. So if they're at all able to go forward in the pack and keep pace with the other Umas in the late race, if they spurt and hit their acceleration, they will simply win due to their late race speed coefficient. The big thing that end closers have over late surgers is that they have access to their mid-race skill in Daring Strike. Not only is Daring Strike a stronger than average mid-race skill, it also is on a wit card, Mr. CB, which is a rather powerful wit card. And because of this, and due to its low investment, because it only requires really one LB to use, a lot of people are going to be able to actually grab some gold mid-race options, which is certainly a rather large advantage. The trade-off is you have less acceleration options to do. You do have to rely more on positional-based accelerations due to that lack of acceleration. And of course, your PDM is much, much higher than the pace chasers and frontrunners in particular. So there's not really any Uma stand to PDM break you. It's all RNG. And so with that, they are rather good options. The only other thing to mention is there are very few of them. There's only two end closer A characters with dirt reachable aptitudes. You can count Tamama Cross as well, but it's technically a force. You do need a bonus dirt spark to proc. So really, the parent building bearing for end closers is much higher than the other roles. And for a lot of characters, you're probably just going to want to run them late surger because they are simply less hassle. And closes are a little bit more difficult than those late surgers, but you do get that late race speed coefficient if you're able to go and build them. Surprisingly, they seem to be really easy to build once you get your parents online. Reason being is, of course, you just kind of run a speed, wit, stamina deck, and you have all the skills that you absolutely need. Okay, so that's end closers. Let's go and talk about stats real quick, and then of course the skills. So for stats, hasn't really changed through this rest of the for the rest of the field. 868 stamina makes it so 901 becomes a threshold. Realistically, you want as much stamina as you can muster while still hitting your speed requirement. Power, you would love for it to be above 1,000. You really would love for it to be 1,200, but we know we can take what we can get. Try to get a balance of power and wit. And for end closers, you might want a little bit more wit because you pacing up in the early game means that we'll talk about this a little bit later, but means that the rest of your late surges, if you're running them, also have a possibility to wit check and pace up as well. Otherwise, remember that debuffs are rather tough on this particular track. If someone decides to stamina debuff you, you probably want a gold recovery on top of this in order to counter that out. For skills, the only acceleration difference is you do not have access to on your left, so you have to rely on pretty much the white version of Take the Chance. If you have the serious card or are able to borrow it, it does give from the brink gold on an Agum SN. If you do win that, it is a very nice bonus. Otherwise, you're relying on Take the Chance and mainly Nimble Navigator with some supplementaries like Ig Power and Forward March. You can, of course, go and run Parents of particularly Special Week, but also Meisho Doto. They add a 0.1 if they do proc on time. Otherwise, that's pretty much the conglomerate of gamble-based accelerations that you bring up, and you pair it mostly with Measure Doper Alt in Moving Past and Beyond. Measure Orion Alt does work, but because of the number of debuffs there are, just like you saw in Ray's diagram and the one I mentioned in the Late Surger 1 video, it's very difficult sometimes to hit 6th place. Really, you need someone to be at all soulful. You need definitely, like pretty much the only situation that it fails in is if you have 2 Christmas Oguris with 4 debuffers. Are you winning that anyways is really the question you got to ask yourself. So if you are free to play and you only have Ryan as one of your parents and you are lacking acceleration options, I certainly would at least try to snipe that 6th place and try to hit a 0.4 excel, and you will go and try to steal a couple of wins. Although it is rather tough compared to Measure dober. Okay, there's a bunch of gamble options. This has not changed from the late surger video. They're a little bit too rough. The only big difference in the too late accelerations is that straightaway spurt gives you absolutely no value. That is primarily what makes end closers strong on particularly long tracks. But this one, the final straight, or rather the late race straight, the first late race straight that is encountered is the final straight, which is much too far away from the spurt to get any sort of value in acceleration. For mid-race options, the end closer advantage is Daring Strike. It's on a pretty accessible card in Mr. CB. It only really requires one limit break, and yes, it is back half of the pack, but that fifth place should be accessible to you, and this is a above average mid-race skill in terms of actual distance that it does gain you. Besides it, pretty much everything else is the same as Late Surger. You got See You Later on Light Hello is the other primary gold skill that you're probably going to grab. Slipstream Down the Dirt, it's on top pick. Burning Soul is a mini recovery combined with a mini velocity skill. Tail Held High is good. Nothing Ventured, Uma Stand, and of course Eager is also back half, so it is again a little bit tough as well, and doesn't have as much upside as Daring Strike, but it's still an option that I would grab behind the other skills on this list. Mid race is kind of the key for end closers because you really want to push forward in the pack, like I said. Your late race is sort of covered by your speed coefficient. You don't need as much late race to compensate. You can lobby gamble with killer tunes. If you go in Daring Strike and you get into, fifth place, you're kind of going to be settling around there. Killer tunes is also an option. Up tempo is usually pretty cheap. If the white version does appear, I'd probably pick it up, maybe behind some of these other skills. Sunny Sign is the dirt version of up tempo as well. Corners are good, straights are good. I personally prefer straights over corners because they can high roll and PDM break you, and then this causes a massive little cascade of pace up EX mode for your backliners. A little bit niche there, but I personally just enjoy them, and I think it does have a little bit more chance of speed carryover than corners particularly do. For late race, a lot of it is on your actual end closer speed coefficient, but a couple of notes. First of all, the end closer skills, Petrifying Gaze and the White version Petrifying Gaze, they're fine. It is vision based, which means you can just miss that Christmas Oguri that's too far in front, especially if you decide to wide swing, and I say decide, but if the game decides to wide swing you. Masterful Gambit, is a little bit tough because it is distance rate, and if it does proc late like it's showing in the sim, I think it is able to proc a little bit earlier. I think it's second half, I guess. This distance rate from this ray diagram that we said before too, if we have a bunch of dirt GD buffers that are slow, it's going to screw up your distance rate, and this has a bunch of implications. While in the mid race it probably won't matter too much because you should be able to pace up EX mode them a little bit. When we start getting into the late race, it's really, really tough to see how far forward you're going to be. Hopefully you've hit your acceleration, so you're kind of closing the gap between Oguri and Christmas Oguri, I guess, and whoever the front runner is that's in front. And the debuffers are going to be so far behind that I don't think Masteral Gambit's going to work very, very, very well. So it's just a little bit finicky. You probably just take it behind the other skills on this list. Unyielding and Steadfast. A note on that too, if you're running late surge or cascade like I'm doing, hopefully the person that's targeting you now to pass is another one of your late surges. If two of your Umas hit, you can actually proc the skill and it be perfectly fine because hopefully they are targeting each other and then eventually they will duel each other. So a lot of times you will be an overtake target to your other late surger, so this isn't as bad as it looks anymore. It's still a little bit cope, but I think it's perfectly fine. Homestretch Chase always works, of course. Nothing Ventured works. Come what may, you're probably taking from the scenario link on the Agnes Tachyon card. For late race, otherwise you just grab your standard inherits. You probably want Triumphant Pulse, and Red Teo is an option. Vaudeville is a little rough as well. You're probably just grabbing Triumphant Pulse. You're probably grabbing something like Shadow Break, or you're grabbing Bark Roll of Blessings as the lobby gamble for that 400 meter mark. Shooting Star is fine. Pretty much half of the ultimates in the game are late race ultimates, and a lot of them work. Kind of looking for 0.25s, but it's not actually 100% required. Digi-Ult 2 works a lot, and I know a lot of people are looping that character. Otherwise, Solid Steps is a green, that works. Full Tilt is Final Spurt, basically. phase 3. If you're not in 5th by phase 3, you are losing that race. So full tilt is good on pretty much everybody. Immediate final corner late race is normally bad, but of course end closers normally will late proc this, because if they're in 4th, it's a stake 2 juicy situation. Oh no, you are in 4th place as a end closer and have hit, you are going to win that race, right? For the scenario stuff, again, nothing has changed here. It's pretty much all fine. You can grab Racing Spirit Power. Racing Spirit Stamina is going to burn 100 stamina. I don't know how you get stamina in this particular CM, so I don't think you're taking that one too much. Racing Spirit Gust does nothing for us at this particular time. And of course, Racing Spirit Speed is just a mid-race option. So you have a couple of these as supplementaries that are okay. A lot of people are looping them into parents because they are generally free additions. For stamina, this is really the trouble of end closers, is that your two of your three specific end closer recoveries aren't really that good. Serenity should proc, and from the times I've tested it, it has procced. You only have to basically be the slipstream condition, which should happen if you have like any level of late surgers, or anyone's running a late surger at all. You should be butted up against them for the 2 seconds that is required or whatever. So Serenity, I think, is actually a good recovery this Champions meeting. I could be wrong, I suppose. I've only tested about 5 times, but it has procced all 5 of those times. After School Scroll, there's no downhills on the map, so that will not work. So gold chip players, if you are forcing that, don't take your gold recovery. And Standing By or Sleeping Iron has that little problem with the debuffer screwing the distance rate. It is in the mid race, so if it does decide to proc early, it's probably perfectly fine, but as you can see, it can proc the final like frame, and at that point you would lose it. So it's just a little bit more tough than it needs to be when there's other options like Swinging Maestro and Breath of Fresh Air that are more easily accessible to do so. So Serenity is an option. The other two I probably just wouldn't bother with, honestly. For cards, you are probably getting Blight Hello, of course. See You Later is good. For speed cards, this is really the trouble, is there isn't really an Enclosure speed card that's particularly good, so you're just running your best speed generation available, which is normally Kittison Black and Agnes Tachyon, which has Come What May to help you out as well. Those are two really good skills. Otherwise, you're running your best speed card available, like I said. For free-to-play / you need to fill up your deck with SSR welfare cards, Toast and Jordan does give a recovery, as does the Air Shakur speed card that we got in Trackblazer. Not the greatest of trainings, but it's still perfectly fine, especially as a third speed card if you are into that. Otherwise, Vodka's fine. Pretty much use your best SRs for generation. I like Sweep Tosho and Shinko Windy for me personally. For Wit cards, the big one's going to be Mr. CB. I think you borrow Mr. CB over Symboli Sirius, just because it's a card that has a better generation, and I think that Daring Strike gives you 2.1 lengths, and the additional 0.2 from the brink is really only in the 2 to 3 length range. So I don't think that you are losing too much from just borrowing the better speed card. This also has skill point bonus for you to buy more skills in general. She also gives corner recovery, as someone mentioned. I forgot about that. It is technically an Aguma-sen, but you should be able to get this as well. Remember, the series card is also an Aguma-sen, so if your wit is not high and you're seeing the chains happen, you're probably getting the white version of From the Brink. Otherwise, run your best wit card available. A lot of people will be running Fine Motion just because of its pure stat generation, okay? Otherwise, for SRs, you have Fuku, which gives you right-handed, has very high initial training effectiveness. The training gauge, sorry. The Sweep Tosho Wit card is an option as well. It just gives you EC straights and EC corners with Slipstream as well. Otherwise, you're running your best Wit cards available. Die with Scarlet Wit has probably the best Wit generation out of all of them. It's just you got to get that initial friendship gauge up. For stamina cards, Super Creek is the pretty much, I wouldn't say the be all end all, but they is probably the best option, like hands down. If you don't have Super Creek, you do have some other options. Like, you can be fancy with Rudolph Stamina, or you can even get Satona Diamond, although the trainings aren't the greatest on it. And Iron Will is not the greatest speed. There's a bunch of other stamina cards. You're probably not taking any of these as well. For welfare cards, I will admit, I guess, the Biwa card's fine too. Like, I personally always just ran the Manhattan Cafe, but I'll say it, like, maybe I was wrong. But Man Cafe's trainings aren't the greatest, but she does go to Stam a lot, which generates you a ton of currency, which I think is rather powerful, and that's why I did suggest it. But technically the Biwa card is less specialty priority and has slightly better trainings and SB bonus. So pick your poison there. Xenorobroy is for pure stam generation, as people have been saying. Otherwise, you're just picking your best stamina card at that point that you have access to. Utility cards are rather tough. Ignore air group power. I didn't update this particular slide. You're probably not running any utility card on an end closer, because if you're running a utility card, you might as well be running Sirius Symboli Wit, right? So if you are looking for a example deck, this was the late Surger one. The really only difference is you're kind of replacing Nice Nature with Mr. CB, and then you don't have a third speed card, so you're probably just running best speed card available. If you're running SRs, um, it's pretty much the same thing. You're just kind of changing in Mr. CB instead of running Nice Nature in that particular slot. And then of course, go and put any stamina card that you require. If you are not hitting your stamina requirements, you can do Biwa, you can do Zenorabroy, you can do Manhattan Cafe, you can do Super Creek if you have it, 3LB plus in particular. So it's pretty simple to build these end closers. You just put the wit cards and the speed cards and the stamina cards in a deck, and you hope that you hit all of your stats. Is kind of how Grand Live has been running. For characters, I'm going to grab a drink real quick. For characters, probably going to go over a few more than you really should consider, but ones you certainly should consider are Inari 1. This character is probably the best end closer available. First of all, now we're cruising as a Triumphant Pulse on a duel. You will be dueling in a lot of situations where you are winning, so it is a rather great skill, and honestly is a good inherit on a lot of other particular characters. And she comes with Tail 9, which is free mid-race. That combined with the fact her events give a ton of skills for this dirt medium track that will really help you, including Forward March, which is an acceleration option. She's rather powerful. The reason why you would run her end closer over late Surger, because you can run this character late Surger, would be for Master of the Sands having a better chance of actually proccing. It is order rate greater than or equal to 50, which means it is 5th or worse. A lot of times this is rather consistent. Luckily, it's order rate and not distance rate. If you're not running debuffers yourself, and particularly debuffers with Dirt G aptitude and like relatively low levels of wit, if you're running high wit debuffers with good aptitudes, Master of the Sands should be able to proc, and it is a gold recovery attached to a half-sized mid-race speed skill. So with the amount of mid-race speed that she has that is applicable to this with Tail 9 and Master of the Sands, this is a very formidable end closer in general. That 20% power bonus and that 10% stamina bonus is much appreciated in this particular champions meeting. Hishi Amazon, I think, is the other one you should consider. It is Dirt E. It is rather difficult to get that. That's 4 Dirt parents, and you probably want 2 medium parents on the other side as well. 20% power bonus is really going to help. The big thing about her is, yes, Storm and Drung is a little bit tough. Unyielding is also a little bit tough, but she does come with end closer corners and end closer straights, and with the buff to you and to back half of the pack skills, the unyielding is not the worst thing in the world. And you and me 1-on-1 should, I believe, proc. It is only 4th or worse after pass, and if you are running other late surges, you should be passing them if you hit and any of your other late surges doesn't exactly perfect proc hit. So if one hits, Hishi Amazon will go and proc you and me 1-on-1. It'll be perfectly fine. You will be at top speed by the time you go and pass it there, because the final corner is far enough away from the spurt. Otherwise, like, surely there's a singular pace chaser that doesn't hit their excel, right? Otherwise, if 2 of yours hits, you're probably proccing Unyielding and it does push you forward as well. I think this character is rather strong. I don't think we're going to be seeing many of them due to the difficulty of parent building, but it's a good parent building challenge, and you Hishi Amazon mains are certainly going to do it. This is one of the maps that she is actually rather good on, in my personal opinion. You're probably running 2 speed and praying you just hit the speed, honestly, because the stamina requirements are rather tough for her. Tamama Cross is a force because of Dirt F, which means you need a Pink Spark to proc. Most times when you have Dirt B, due to 4 parents, you will probably get that Dirt Spark. It just makes it a lot harder to get that Medium S. She is basically the same as Nari 1 with much less health. White Lightning coming through is your mid-race. They can technically leak into the acceleration zone because of it late procs on the final bit of the straight. It will leak through the Excel and speed carryover. Most times You probably will be in 6th place earlier on that straight, so most times it's just general mid-race. She has access to tail 9, which is additional access to mid-race above the field. You probably even take up tempo on her as well in the current climate of this champions meeting. That 20% stamina bonus and the 10% power bonus, just like Inari 1, is very powerful. It's just, again, the dirt sparks are rather tough. For the BN characters, do note you probably just want to run anyone after this point, late surger, unless you really, really, really like them, watching them be very fast. Agnes Digital is the strongest of these because of Super Stand, and of course, lead the charge. You probably take the white version on this, unless you have an incredible amount of skill points. Wet conditions, medium straights, top pick, home stretch haste, a lot of relevant skills on Digiton, and of course 887 on speed, stamina, power is much, much welcome on this champions meeting. OMG, the final sprint, we've talked about this before, but lane movement basically means the dead zone if it procs early. Doesn't really matter too much because it can cancel wide swings, of course, and you can change lanes, which increases your speed in general. So it helps a lot with that. You probably still run her late surger because she also has late surger relevant skills, but if you have an end closer spark, straight end closer spark, go and try it and see how it feels. For C or worse, you definitely are probably running these late surger, but of course, Pasta Fantasy gives you almost nothing and has Condor's Fury, which is late, but she does have speed bonus. Probably not running this. Regular Pasta pretty much doesn't have an ult on end closer, to be perfectly blunt, and has 20% speed. Probably not the position to run her as well. Mayano Top Gun Wedding has a problem in that sometimes you're going to go and get the Excel version of this. If there's debuffers, you'll get the speed version anyways. You're running this because you want to see Maya go fast, though. Maya on Top Gun Regular is probably the better of the two to run in the end closer because she does have no stopping me, which is a form of acceleration in a class that is lacking in acceleration options that are semi-reliable. If you NSM on this character from the back of the pack, it's probably enough to compete with Christmas Ogre. It's just rather tough sometimes. Flashy Landing as well. Probably won't proc because, I mean, if you get in a rail, it may proc, but it's just block side continue time is really, really finicky. If you wide swing, it's pretty much over. You're not going to get your ultimate there. For D or minus, I'm just putting in these here for completionist sake, but you can run OG Ogre. Triumph Impulse is a great skill. Triumph Impulse is also a good skill in the late surger, and you can also just grab probably more late race by running it in the late surgery because it's going to be, you know, less parents and more white skills on your parents because you don't have to run end closer sparks. Bamboo Memory doesn't have an ult. Rising Dragon either because that's late surger stuff. I didn't update this slide at all. I was pretty much going to say just run her late surger and pray that she just is a vanilla late surger that hits her stuff. Christmas Ogre Cap. I guess you're faster. If you want to make it easier on me, you can run an end closer. You don't have as much access to stuff on it, and you don't have access to Uma squared, so I at least have that 25% chance of going and trying to win the race. And of course, Harurara is NB and medium G. I guess if you're going for it, you might as well go for it, right? Right? Super Duper Climax also procs in the late race, so it's only debuff protection. It does not actually affect the spurt itself. Don't try it. So why would you want to run End Closer after I've been pretty much saying there's only really two characters that kind of really want to run it? Well, there's a few reasons. First of all, Oshi, like I said. Second of all, you want to watch them be fast, but there is a particular, strategic reason to actually run them. That's the new Pace Up EX mode that was happening. This late surge cascade thing I talked about, imagine this in the early race. You're running a bunch of late surges, two late surges, and an end closer. Your end closer gets out of the gate really, really, really good through let's say, a straightaway skill. This is all in theory, by the way. I've seen it work a couple times. It's just the problem is that the wit checks kind of normalize it. Your end closer passes your late surger, which can trigger, assuming there is a wit check, it can trigger Pace Up EX mode on yours as well as everyone else's late surger. Because your primary competition is not those other late surgers, your primary competition is the Christmas Ogures and Kopana Rickeys that are most likely paces and fronts. Boosting all the late surgers in the lobby is usually favorable to you because you are the ones running the late surgers, and you versing the other late surgers is an easier battle to fight than you fighting those Christmas Ogre caps. So pacing up your other characters through the use of hopefully getting an end closer with a ton of mid-race, particularly skills that proc in the early half of the mid-race and skills that can PDM break you, is actually a decent strategy to consider. This is still a wit check, so it is not consistent whatsoever. Sometimes your late surgers will just ignore this, but I'm this is like a decent strategy to get you perhaps an additional length or so and to help with pace up mode, particularly on late surges that, again, we're having trouble generating wit right now because we are trying to go and generate stamina. Any avenue to go and kind of collapse this pack a little bit is going to be favorable for us late surger players as well. So consider this when you're building a team comp as well. Okay, there's going to always be these, these debuffers in the back, of course, but this will go and help in general uh, compress your pack and help your late surges out a little bit more. Technically, it does technically work on the pace chasers, just much less likely because they have less PDM than you do. So that's been the late surger stuff. The late surger stuff, man. The end closer checklist is here. The stamina is probably the most important up to your level that you're required for the number of debuffs that you want to tank. Your speed is then your highest priority, and then get a balance of power and wit. Finally, guts will help a little bit with speed. It's like a 20% conversion, as well as help you out a tiny bit with stamina, but is honestly a little bit luxury. Um, Gold recovery for debuff safety is rather nice. Your primary acceleration is probably take the chance with a combination of Measure of Dober, Nimble Navigator, or Forward March. And then from there, you can take Ryan Alt if you really want to, but really you should be focusing on mid race on these characters. The point is that this is going to help your team comp. You focus on mid race, you go and you grab a late race skill or two, and then from there, grab more mid race to help your team out as well. Like I said, these characters can just win because they are the fastest. Like Enclosed can just win because they are faster than everyone else. You will go and steal a few races on them if you are able to go and build them correctly. So this has been the Encloser Guide. I hope you've enjoyed it. The front runners, do not worry. I'm like halfway done with it, so I just wanted to put this one out as give me a bit more time for it. But yours could probably are coming out either later tonight or tomorrow. So I will get that out as soon as it's finished. I'm not going to wait a day on a day. When I have something to say, I'm just going to go and post it. I don't really do a schedule here, and it's been working out fine, actually. It's surprisingly enough. YouTube doesn't really seem to care that I kind of do 2-3 videos in a day, and then I skip a day, and then I come back to it and do 2-3 videos, and I'm just going to post content as I see fit. After the thing, we're probably going to have a debrief of me being sad, but we shall see with this champions meeting. All that's left now is to thank the members. Thank you all for watching. Of course, any support is appreciated. It's never required. I try not to gatekeep as much as I can at the moment. So of course, those in the Borb tier, the $5 tier, I shout out at the end of the overview video, and I've been doing it in each of the role guides as well, because there is enough of them that I can handle. So thank you especially to Kiku's the IRL, Immobility, Mr. Merit 1, Crest of Gautier, Lucifel, Peter Van San, Oscar Van Bruce, Misha, Sage, CD Ogren, Sorcerer, Elise Bright, Etep Pete, Astrosarian, Eva Delta, Scraps, It's Bella Nox, Coralicious, Gals the Burr, Aoi Tori, Boss Corey, Zinni TF, Dark Wabbits, Brandy Boffin, Tony Lim, Dialectical, Sleepy Bat, Pavi, Trevor Overtone, Oguri Capita Burger, Dalagante, Jeffrey is the Goat, PH Bant, C, Giras, Ariantes, The Real Meisho Doto, Awex Gubs, Tokai Teo Monarch, Velio, NC, and Summer's Moon. Thank you all for watching. Good luck out there. Take care. Burb out.